Namaste. My name is Preity Upala, and I am a global thought leader and a multimedia personality. Welcome to my podcast, The Preity Experience. Join me as I explore some of the most fascinating and crucial issues that affect our world today. I take a unique global perspective on these issues, and the very foundation of my insights is humanity and spirituality. I'm Preity Upala, and welcome to the Preity Experience.
Namaste, Jai Hind. My name is Preity Upala, and you are watching the Preity Experience. Welcome to another episode of Power Play with Preity. And this episode is one of the most interesting and exciting episodes that we have the pleasure of bringing to you. It is the test of the best, and it's about the World Test Championship final that will be happening this Friday. And we'll go into a deep dive and look at all facets of this championship, as well as the squads and so much more. And to join me on this very exciting episode, I'm going to have the one and only LS. So let's bring him on so that he can join us in this conversation. Namaste, LS, and welcome to the Preity Experience again. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling on top of the world. I mean, a big day coming up for both teams, India and New Zealand. New Zealand, let's talk about New Zealand first. They were in the finals of the World Cup, narrowly missed out on the win. Now they're there in the finals of the World Test Championship, which proves a small country like New Zealand, well, they not only got rid of COVID easily, they're getting rid of their opponents easily as well. And the current victory over England well, gets them into a really good situation because they've been in England for a longer time than India. They played a few test matches against England. They won the series, and they will be on very, very good mindset because they'll be in top form. So the feeling will be really good in the New Zealand camp. India, on the other hand, have to go through this bio bubble again. The players could get together only when they were practicing, and once the practice was finished, they all headed back to the rooms and stayed in the bio bubble that was created for the team. So I think just before the day, they probably will have the meeting, which will be of very, very high significance.
Yes, you're absolutely spot on. And also, but remember, India has been number one for 5 consecutive years, and they're technically are still number one as far as the World WTC final, well, championship is concerned, because it's those points that brought them to the final. And, at that time, they were number one. You can't rule out anyone. Yes, New Zealand has that slightly extra advantage, but India is a very formidable team. I mean, this is an incredibly significant championship, I think, for Test cricket in general, but especially these two teams. And I think that they both have something to prove. They've both been a little unfortunate in England. England maybe has been a bit of a graveyard for both of these amazing nations. And I think that they'd want to, prove their critics wrong and show the world why each one is the best. Now, let's move on to the various facets of this final. Before we get into squad analysis and predictions and strategies for India, I think we should look at the three most important, um, uh, you know, uh, uh, points about this final, which are the weather, pitch, and the toss. So let's start with the weather. I must say, I've been taking a hard look at the weather forecast in Southampton, and I am sorry to say for Indian fans that it is maybe not as dry and sunny as they would have liked. It's not the perfect weather that they would have hoped for. It On the 18th, which is the first day, it's it's moved from light rains to now the forecast is saying heavy rains and moderate breeze, which is not great for any team. There is a 90% chance of rain from about noon to 8 p.m. So I guess my first question is there going to be any play at all on the 18th? And if it's going to be raining all day, shouldn't they just push it at least a day forward?
Well, it's a thing that you can't control. Weather's out of your hands or anybody's hands. And the weather in England, as we all know, can be very fickle. And the weather predictions, although is more or less right most of the time, and if it's going to be 90% chance of rain, definitely even if you have 70, 75% rains, it's going to be very difficult for the ground conditions to dry. However, the pitch will be covered really well. They have good covers in Southampton. It's going to be covered really well. The outfield might have a little bit of water. So if the weather prediction is right, I think we might not have the first day's play, and probably making it a 6 day test match will probably help. So now it will become a 5 day test match unless ICC tell them by this evening or tomorrow that they're going to extend it to a 6 day test match from the 19th.
Yeah, I mean there is some talk of, you know, actually postponing it a whole week. I'm not so sure that we have enough time for that, considering all, you know, I mean, all the preparations are underway. It's unfortunate, I think, that these are the dates that they ended up getting in this window, because a week before and a week after is actually much warmer. So it's just a strange coincidence, maybe, that this is the sort of the best days that they could get. The forecast for the 19th through to the 22nd is um, sunny intervals, and I think some possibility of light rains, but that's not every day, so it's fairly dry and warm. The 23rd is the sunniest day, however, possible light rain. So I think from the 19th till the 23rd is much better than Friday, of course. But let's see how things pan out. Now we know about the weather. So the pitch. I mean, how do you see this weather affecting the pitch?
Definitely, in England, what they'll say is look on top and then look down below. What they really mean is the overhead conditions kind of dictates how the pitch behaves. If there's sunny conditions, then the moisture on the pitch dries out quickly and becomes a really good batting surface. But if there is no sunshine and the cloud cover is going to exist and there is no rain, there's going to be a lot of help for the fast bowlers. And because the moisture is still going to remain in the surface for much longer, and also they're going to play with the Duke's ball. I just inquired a little bit with Danny Morrison. In New Zealand, they play with the Kookaburra balls. In India, we play with the SG balls. So the Duke balls, generally, I have played cricket with it, and it's a really similar to the SG ball, more similar to the SG ball
Yes.
than the Kookaburra balls. So I think that's where India could have a better feel of the ball. But I think it would be a good toss to win because if the weather conditions are going to be rain forecast and it's going to come down, I think the pitch might have a little bit of dampness and it'll be a really good toss to win. And once you win, because why I'm saying this is I've attended many a team meeting and the first thing they discuss is looking at the pitch, okay, if we win the toss, what do we do? So toss is the very, very important thing normally itself. But if the weather conditions are going to be what they are predicting, I think holds a lot of significance. And
Yes.
straight away, if you win the toss, whoever wins the toss will have 10% advantage over the opposition.
I agree. It's unfortunate that the toss has, you know, such a big significance, especially with weather conditions like this. It's going to play an even bigger role. And, you know, even the curator has said that he wants to, you know, he would like a pitch to have pace and bounce and carry. So that's all great for him, perhaps, because and I mean, he went on to sort of say that this is the kind of cricket that I like to watch, and that's great. But I mean, not, that's not spin friendly. He's happy to cater for pace and bounce, but didn't mention spin at all. So we will get what we get, and which takes us to the next point, which is the toss. And
Now, I'd like to talk about the pitch as well, Preeti, because I know Ravi and Ravi Shastri and
Mhm.
Bharata really, really well. And Arul will more or less come into the picture looking at the pitch because Arul's background, after he worked for a certain company,
Yes.
and he took up the job of creating a couple of grounds, which
Mm.
meant that he was involved with the soil, with the outfield, with the pitches. So he is one that regularly goes to the pitch first and assesses the pitch conditions. I think the day before they would have seen the pitch, more or less decided what the 11 would be, but they would definitely have another look on the
Yes.
day the match begins. And Arun would be the first person with Shastri looking at the pitch and then deciding what to do with the combination of the team. And obviously, if there is going to be a little bit of dampness and a little bit of moisture, the
Yes.
choice will be to bowl first from both captains.
Absolutely. Yes, you're right. The whoever wins the toss has a big leg up, and each the captain that wins would want to bowl first, and bowl out the other team as soon as possible, and get to bat on the second or third days when it's much better conditions for batting. Um, Virat Kohli doesn't have the best records in winning tosses, but I hope that this is one that he will win because once in a while he does get it right. And I guess it will be the number one team who might be flipping, and the number two team might call out. So I suppose Williamson might have to call out heads or tails. We shall find out.
That's where Gavaskar says. Gavaskar always says the guy who spins or flips the coin is not in control. The guy who's calling is in
Yes,
control. So Virat, as the number one team captain, he is going to flip the coin.
yes.
He can only flip the coin and keep quiet. So if Kane Williamson wins the toss or loses a toss, we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure people are digging out information to see how Kane Williamson, his record as captain winning tosses.
True. I mean, he's much better with tosses, I think. All right. So now that we have that covered, let's move on to the squad breakdown, the squad analysis. We'll start with New Zealand, and they have announced their 15-man squad. No great surprises. They're they did leave out Mitchell Santner, and they have Ajaz Patel, which I thought was a brave move considering Santner is much more experienced and Patel is very green, I would say. However, I think he's a far superior spinner. So I think that's a very wise move. You have your usual suspects. You've got all the fantastic New Zealand players. Let me just quickly go through the list, and then we can, I guess, deliberate on some of them. You have Kane Williamson, Ross Taylor, Devon Conway, Henry Nichols, John Latham, Kyle Jamieson, Tim Southey, Neil Wagner, BJ Watling, uh, Colin de Grandhomme, Matt Henry, Trent Bolt, and Ajaz Patel. So let's start with Kane Williamson, the captain himself. What are your views of his record in England and in these conditions in recent times?
Well, if you compare home and away, Kane Williamson's average in New Zealand is 65 and in England it's 44, and very similar to Virat Kohli. So the Indian captain and the New Zealand captain would go with the same, more or less the same average at home and away. But you'll have to remember in 2014 when Virat Kohli went, in 10 innings he just managed 134 runs. He was getting out to Jimmy Anderson every now and again. So that probably meant that his average was on the lower side overall. But the next time he toured England, I was there in England at that point in time. I saw him in the net session about 3 days, and he was practicing leading balls alone. He was not looking to play the ball with the bat, and he was asking the pitchers, the guy who sling the ball, the net bowlers. I mean, net bowlers would bowl at him, but you have Sri Lankan who chucks the ball with that equipment, and you also have Raghu, the boy from Bangalore. But all he did in the nets was ask him to chuck the ball outside, off him from different angles, and keep leaving it. Because Virat Kohli always, I mean, if you look at his favorite shot, it's the cover drive. So if you bowl a half volley outside off stump, he is going to play at it. But This is one discipline that he brought about in 2018, and he got a lot of success. And I'm sure he must be doing the same because he's not got 100 for a long time. And great people wait for big occasions to get their milestone marks. So I'm hoping Virat Kohli. See what happens once you keep leaving the ball alone, there's no chance for the batsman to get out. Then the bowler's got to try something different, which means if they get to middle stump, middle and off stump, there's a good chance that Virat Kohli can work it through mid wicket. So it's a patience game. For me, winning the toss is very crucial, and the first session, Preeti, is going to tell us probably which way the game's going to go.
Yes, absolutely. We'll find out, I think, on the first day, pretty much how things will unfold. But looking at some of the openers, I mean, you've got, I mean, Ross Taylor, Devon Conway. Devon Conway, what a story! Now, we've done some research on him to find out his background, and he's had a fascinating background. Comes from South Africa, from Johannesburg, and grew up there, and then moved to New Zealand and played county cricket there for various universities. And he did it the hard way. And he got picked because he was very, very good. I mean, one may say he got lucky, but I think he put in the hard yards, and because of his sheer skill, obviously he was a talent. And like once they fulfill, I guess, the qualifications that one needs, and New Zealand has its own set of rules. He was able to play for New Zealand. So it's a quite a great story, I think, and I'm sure that they're very happy to have him.
And what a way to start his career.
Yes,
Against England at the Mecca of cricket, so they call, and there's a slope from one side to another. So even standing in the crease is a bit of a problem. And he's had a very, very impressive debut. And he was good through the offside, predominantly getting a lot of runs on the offside. So I'm sure India are working out strategies. But remember, Tom Latham and Devon Conway, they're going to be left-handers.
yes,
And if India are bowling first, even if there's moisture in the pitch, I would expect the same what happened in Melbourne. Ajinkya Rahane was the captain in Melbourne, but Ravi Shastri was there, and we were there on the tour of 1986. There was moisture on the pitch. Australia batted first, and Ravi Shastri and me were used in the first session. And I picked up 2 wickets. I got Alan Border and David Hooks out. And it's not that if there is moisture on the pitch, the ball's definitely going to grip. When the ball grips, there's sea movement for the faster bowlers, and when for a spinner it grips, there is turn. So I'm sure Ravi, with his knowledge, with a vast experience, would tell. Ashwin has got over 400 wickets, and over 200 wickets have been left-handers. Latham and Conway, left-handers. So it's a good
yes.
chance that Ashwin could be brought on early into the attack.
Wonderful. That's definitely a strategy that India would want to use. Um, So New Zealand are an extremely disciplined side, and I think they have a game plan, regardless of whether they win the toss or not. And I feel that they're a team that will stick to it and follow that through. Whatever wherever that leads them. Usually, it has been leading them to victories, but we'll find out. Now, let's come to India. Of course, I'm sure all the audience are very keen to know our analysis of the Indian side. I just want to read out quickly. I mean, this is a potential playing 11. They'd just be, I think, one or two changes. But right now we have Rohit Sharma, we have Shubman Gill, Pujara, Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, Rishabh Pant, R. Jadeja, Ravi Ashwin, Ishant Sharma, Bumrah, and Mohammad Shami. Um, so this is, I think, a lot of people would predict as the potential playing 11. I think if it was warm and sunny conditions, this would be the excellent team, the perfect team. But now that we know what the weather is doing, now we know what the pitch is going to do. Indian supporters, I'm sure, will be very concerned about this weather forecast and this pitch conditions being wet and having the cold breeze. They'd be concerned about having two spinners, I think. And What are your views of that? Will you still go with the two spinners, or would you take a chance and have four seam bowlers?
Now, four seam bowlers is a bit of a luxury. And if you look at whether Umesh Yadav or Siraj, both of them are not handy with the bat. But if
Yeah.
you look at our spinners, Jadeja is probably very close to Ben Stokes as an all-rounder in Test match cricket.
Yes.
And Jadeja can get 40 or 50 runs. He can save 20 runs. So already he is plus 50 or 60 with his batting and fielding. And Jadeja's job in the first innings would be to keep it tight. I'm
Yes.
sure the instructions from Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri to Jadeja will be if there is no turn, bowl line and length and keep it tight. And Ashwin likes to do a whole lot of variation, likes to do the experimentation. So Ashwin will reap rewards with Jadeja controlling and bowling in quick overs. What Jadeja does is doesn't give the batsman enough time to think. If he can get his tight overs in, pressure will build up because batsmen don't like to play defense these days. They like to keep rotating strike, playing shots, and Ashwin will be very handy. I'm sure Ashwin, with his record against left-handers, will strike early blows. Remember on the tour of Sri Lanka, once when they went to Sri Lanka, I think it was Kumar Sangakkara's last series, and every innings getting Kumar Sangakkara, Ashwin was absolutely magnificent because Kumar Sangakkara, over the history of cricket, has been one of the top performers, and he struggled against Ashwin. And we spoke about Ashwin in our last show, the scientist, the astronaut, or whatever. He'll be having some plans for the left-handers.
I'm sure. Yes, I think now the way that you explain it, Jadeja is really an X factor. He's a like a three in one, and he is out of this world kind of a player that India is lucky to have, and I think he will come in and contribute in more than one way. And he is, instead of getting a full time batsman, I think what his contribution with the bat and of course his bowling and fielding make him I mean you have to have him on in the side. And with Ashwin, I think especially because there are all these left-handers in the New Zealand team, you can't leave Ashwin out. So I think it will be the two spinners and the three fast. I guess the other question is, would you go with Mohammad Shami, or would you take a chance on Mohammad Siraj?
No, I'll go with Mohammad Shami. There's a lot of belief that when Shami's in good rhythm, that he gets wickets and wickets in a hurry.
Yes.
And if the pitch dries out, and remember when we spoke about the pitch, if the pitch is going to be slightly damp, there's moisture. Every time the ball hits the surface, it's going to leave a little bit of a mark, which is called the indentation.
Yes.
And over a period of time, every time the ball hits the deck and there is moisture, there will be a lot of indentations in the areas that the bowlers bowl, whether it's good length or short of a length. So the last innings batting is going to be really difficult. So I would think the first innings and the second innings, it might be low scoring because of the weather forecast and how the
Yes.
pitch might behave because of the weather. So the third innings becomes a very, very important factor.
Yes.
The third innings, if the side can get big runs, then the last innings and probably the last 2 days of the test match will be a uphill task. So I think that is where India's combination will have to
Yes.
be Bumrah and Ishant Sharma. Ishant Sharma has been spectacular over the last 2 years. He's very good against the left-handers.
Yes.
So you should be using a lot of Ishant. You should be using a lot of Ashwin in the early part of the game and get in two of their best batsmen. If you get their openers early, then Kane Williamson will be coming back to the side, and he was out in the last Test match because of an injury. And coming back after an injury is not the same. Mentally,
True.
you're wondering if you're fit enough or not. And Ross Taylor could be the danger man for me. Ross
Oh,
Taylor, because he's one player who can play the sweet shot. And Indian spinners particularly don't like the sweet shot to be played. And at that point in time, I like to see Ashwin off the attack and get Jadeja into bowl when Ross Taylor comes into bat. Because Jadeja would be turning the ball away from Ross Taylor. And if he's looking to sweep across the line against the turn of the ball, there's a good chance that he might top edge one. In the case of Ashwin, it'll be with the turn, so it'll be a lot more easier for Ross Taylor. So I think the strategy will go on because 41 years of friendship, I can read Shastri's mind, Arun's mind, and how Virat, who's been probably fantastic as a captain, he always plays for a win. So no matter what happens to the toss, we've got to be focused. India bowling first, just believe that we can get the side all out as quickly as possible because India in the past did not have good fast bowlers. They had only good
Yes.
spinners. Yeah, because you have good fast bowlers and they pick up one or two or three wickets early in the piece, then the spinners can do all the talking. Because New Zealand is looking to rebuild the innings and the spinners will be under no pressure. They can settle down to a nice length, nice rhythm, and dictate the proceedings of the match. So the fast bowlers strike, the spinners are in a very good position to dominate the game.
Absolutely. And would you say that the moisture on the pitch actually also not just helps the fast bowlers, but it also helps the spinners in a way as well?
Yeah, it does help the spinners. Wherever the ball grips and deviates, whether it's a fast bowler or a spinner, it's definitely going to help. So that's where I think there'll be early introduction of spin. And what I personally like to see, because I really think Shami is a good bowler
Yes.
and Ishant is a very steady bowler.
Yes.
He's been very good in the recent past in the last 2 years. I'd like to see Bumrah get wickets with the new ball. Because
Oh,
usually we see at the end of the innings, Bumrah getting the tail, 2 or 3 wickets of the lower order batsmen, and eventually finishing with 4 wickets, 5 wickets, which looks good on paper. I'm not saying it's not every wicket is a wicket, test match
that's
wicket.
right.
But if you get the opening batsman out, which is your job as a new ball bowler, if Bumrah and Ishant can strike early blows, then Shami and the two spinners can make sure that New Zealand doesn't get to over 250, which will be a super job.
Sounds like a real game plan. And just listening to you, I know that Shastri and Arun also have a solid plan for the team. They've obviously thought this through. They've had a lot of time to really come up with the perfect strategy, regardless of whether they win the toss or not. And I'm sure they're thinking about all options and they'll come up with the best possible scenario. Now, Deja Vu, the World Cup in 1983, was very similar. It was in England in June, in
Yeah.
similar conditions, one would say, and India won that against an extremely formidable West Indian team that was probably the best in the world at that time.
I would say it's a scary West Indian team because I played against them, made my test match against them. You had what kind of bowlers? You had Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, Malcolm Marshall, and Joel Garner. Oh, Joel Garner, you look at his height, you get scared. And Malcolm Marshall was the most dangerous bowler. Because he was the shortest of the fast bowlers, and his bounces would skid. Bounces would really skid and come at the batsman's face. Whereas a Michael Holding or a Joel Garner had that extra bit of bounce and it would go over the top. But Malcolm Marshall was dangerous. He was quick and he would bowl round the stumps, which meant he was running behind the umpire and his leap out to bowl at the last moment when he comes close to the umpire. So as a bowler, you don't see him in the run up. You get a visual of the bowler at the last instant, and then he's hurling at you at 90 miles an hour. So that is very, very dangerous. In fact, Gavaskar made a very good observation, and he told me only about a year ago. He said every time Malcolm Marshall was looking to bowl the bouncer, he started his run up with his right leg. So he started his run up with his right leg. Look at the master class of Sunil Gavaskar, how much he is watched. So he knows if he's starting the run up with the right leg, it's going to be a short ball and he's prepared for it. So some kind of a study has to be done and has to be done by the players, the batsmen. I'm sure the bowlers, the coach, and I'd like both to happen. Now, what I'm trying to say is the batsman also sit with the bowling coach and make out what Tim Saudi or a Trent Bolt is trying to do,
Yes.
or Kyle James. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to do? And the batting coach can tell them how to tackle them once the bowling
Hmm.
coach can explain where and how they're trying to bowl in the company of the video analyst, who's probably going to give them a lot more info. So I'd like to see them have a combined meeting
Yes.
together and Ravi Shastri give them the pep talk that is so much required.
Yes.
Imagine in Australia after being all out for under 40, going on to win the series. Ravi would have said, just a bad dream. Carry on, guys. Just have a couple of days off, forget the match, and
Yes.
let's look at the next one. That's been his attitude. What's happened has happened. Let's look forward to the next one. And Ravi will play a very, very big factor. He's going to tell the boys the next 5 days of your life are the greatest days of your life. Go enjoy it, perform, no pressure at all. You're number one side in the world. Just go there and play to at least 80-85% of your ability. You'll end up winning the game.
Wow, that's amazing. Even Tim Payne, the Australian captain, said if India plays anywhere near their best, they will win. So he's actually betting on India to go the distance, which is amazing. And he would know because of the thrashing that Australia got in Australia earlier this year. So let's look at what does India need to do to win? And I've got, let's come up with like 5 points maybe. And so let's start from the openers. What do the openers, Sharma and Gill, have to do?
I think you give the first session in a test match, even in the normal circumstances, because the new ball, you give the first session to the bowlers. And England, you've got to make that slight adjustment in technique, not push at the ball. Try and allow the ball to come close to your body and play very close to your body, even if it means defending. You saw Pujara very effective in Australia because he wore down the bowlers, got them tired. So I think the first session, you give it to the bowlers, just stonewall them. Don't allow them
Wonderful.
to pick up the early wicket. Just grind them. No matter what happens. Play one ball at a time. That's what Rahul Dravid would say. Think about the next one when the next ball happens. Take one ball. And it's a 60 test match. You can bat for 2 days, 2.5 days, and then still declare if you want to. So I'm just saying, no hurry in trying to get runs, trying to play big shots.
Mhm.
Take your time because the opener set the foundation, and then Pujara is there, he's solid as a rock. And Virat Kohli comes in after the 35th to the 40th over. Then the champion is due for big runs, and that will set it up beautifully for the Indian
Mhm.
captain and Ajinkya Rahane as well. So the openers just hold their fort and not lose early wickets. I think it'll be a terrific job.
So the openers must stonewall and stonewall the new bowlers and tire them out. The second one is, let's talk about Ajinkya Rahane. How important is he going to be for this final? His his uh, his mindset, his mentality, and also his style of playing.
Well, crisis man. Good old days, we would call G.R. Vishwanath the man, crisis man, when India lose early wickets. I think Ajinkya Rahane does that. If the side is in trouble, like it happened in Melbourne just recently, he got 100. So every time Ajinkya Rahane has got 100, we haven't lost a test match. That's a similar thing to G.R. Vishwanath. G.R. Vishwanath 14 times. I
Yes.
think Ajinkya Rahane about 11 or 12 times. So Ajinkya is the kind of player when and his best score is against New Zealand in Indoor, 188. So Ajinkya is low key. He's very similar to Kane Williamson, whereas Virat Kohli is very proactive. He shows his emotions out. Whereas a Kane Williamson and Ajinkya Rahane don't show their emotions out, but because they are quiet, they're not weak. They are very tough mentally. So
Yes.
Ajinkya Rahane is very, very important in the club because if Ajinkya Rahane and Virat Kohli bat together and stitch together a big partnership, therein lies a chance of India getting a really big score.
Wonderful. And then, okay, so the third one is, I think, as you mentioned, regardless of when India, whether they win the toss or not, and whether they bowl first or second, they have to bat for 2 days solid. They need 2 days of batting. It doesn't matter if it's a low score. You just must not get out and just be steady as she does it and make sure that you last those 2 days because that also gives you a psychological advantage too, considering there's only 5 days, um, in this whole test. So it sort of helps you the whole way through.
So you decided it's gonna rain first day.
But we have that reserve day, so hopefully we will get
Yeah,
5 full days,
hopefully.
but you never know.
Yeah, like what you're saying, I mean, it's very important to bat long, especially in the first innings. because
Yes.
one of the side gets lead, batting, your second innings is going to be under pressure. How
Yes.
skillful, how temperamentally you are resolved, and your resilience. The word I like to use is resilience that you are. Just matter of saying, I won't lose my wicket, I won't lose my wicket, or think I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. Watch the ball, whatever gets you psyched up, whatsoever gets your concentration levels going up. I think if the top three can do it, that'll make it a lot easier for the next three to come in. I mean, Rishabh Pant is also shown superlative
Yes.
effort. I mean, he can be aggressive at the time if he wants to. He can also be gritty with the bat if he wants to. So I think the top six, if they do their job, and the bowlers, I am very, very confident that the bowlers will definitely do their job because we've not won so many series overseas. India have lost only to New Zealand in New Zealand. Otherwise, even overseas, they've been fantastic.
Agreed. And then the fourth thing, let's talk about Ashwin. I really think he's going to be that game changer. So he needs to target the left-handers. He needs to target Latham and Conway. So bring him on early because they are openers. Bring him on early, get rid of the left-handers, and then you follow through with the rest of your plan. So let's hope that he gets to do that.
Yeah, Ashwin's the kind of bowler, even in white ball cricket, he bowls with the new ball, he bowls at the power play. So he's not the kind of bowler who's not used to bowling with the new ball. Even in India, in the second innings, when the ball's going to turn off the pitch, he opens with the new ball. And the SG balls and Duke balls that they're going to play with is very similar. So bring on Ashwin as early as possible, even if it's in the first innings, and try and get the left-handers out. And you can probably depend on Ishan and Ashwin to get the left-handers out. Once they do that, and if Ross Taylor, if he gets in early, because we all know Kane Williamson can bat for long periods of time
Yeah.
and he can change gears. Ross Taylor, if he comes in early, will be tested because he's normally a very, very aggressive player. But if they
Yes.
lost two wickets, then he's got to mend his ways, try a different way to bat to stabilize the innings. So that is where India can attack him with Jadeja, probably a Bumrah to give him a nice Yorker. So you have all these options going. And if there is any reverse swing, that's where Mohammad Shami will come into play. That's why I prefer Mohammad Shami in the side as the third seamer.
Wonderful. And then the final one is Ishant Sharma. He's the most successful bowler, I would say, in England. So he must use his experience in English conditions. And, I don't know at what point he will be bought in, but he can lead the bowling attack and, show us why he's taken so many wickets here. And he is an excellent bowler. And this is his chance to show, I think, the world just how valuable he's been for India.
A fast bowler, Indian fast bowler playing 100 test matches, well,
Wow.
it's a very, very difficult job because fast bowling, I mean, every time your front foot hits the crease, it takes seven times your body weight. Imagine the foot, it takes seven times your body weight on impact of your front leg landing. So it's a very difficult job. And the hats off to Ishant. He started off really young. He had a few injuries, but playing 100 test matches as a fast bowler is a sensational thing for an Indian cricketer, which I think Kapil Dev has done. Probably Zahir Khan might have played over 100
Yes.
test matches. But overall, talking about Ishant, in the last 2 years, he is more mature as a bowler. We've seen some of these boys started with Zahir Khan, started with Javagal Srinath. Once they went and played a couple of seasons in county cricket, which again is in England, they mature as a bowler very, very quickly. And when they come back to international cricket, they've delivered the goods. Srinath, Zahir Khan, and now we'll have to expect Ishan Sharma, who played some county cricket, to deliver the same.
Wonderful. And I have been looking at the different styles of, I guess, schools of batting in Indian cricket, and I've realized that there are two main styles, or there's two main schools of batting. One is the Mumbai school of batting, and the other is the Delhi school of batting. And players like Rahane and I would say maybe even Rohit Sharma have the Mumbai school of batting, which is all about being patient, resilient, solid, hang in there. Uh, and then the Delhi school of batting is all about flamboyance. So maybe Virat Kohli, Gautam Gambhir, maybe even a Rishabh Pant. Um, would it be fair to say that during this final we need more resilience and less flamboyance? We need the Mumbai school and not so much the Delhi school.
Well, I think the combination of two will work out fine because if you keep defending all the time, somebody has got to dominate the bowlers. If the conditions are good for the bowlers, at some point in time, you've got to rotate strike. In Test match cricket, you've got to pick up the gaps and rotate strike because if I'm a bowler, for that matter, any bowler, he would like the same batsman to play six balls in a row because then you can plan a dismissal. It's much easier bowling to the same batsman, out swinger, and then an in swinger, try and get him out leg before, or an in swinger, then the out swinger, trying to get him out in slips. But if the batsman in the second ball takes a single and goes off to the other end, then you're bowling to a different batsman. If it's a left-right combination, it makes it even more difficult. If there are two right-handers, it's not necessary the length remains the same. The length would depend on the height of the batsman.
Mhm.
So the bowler has to change the length depending on the height of the batsman. Here, what happens with Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma, they're very similar in height.
All right, so we have our five things that India can needs to do to win. Let's talk a little
One
bit
thing for
now.
me, one thing for me. Sorry for getting in. One thing is the fielding.
Yes,
The slip catching, India have certainly put down a lot of chances
yes,
overseas because in Australia, where there is extra bit of bounce, in New Zealand, where there is swing, the ball's going to do a bit and a lot of catches will come to the slip. So the New Zealand fielders will be very good in the slip cordon. But
yes,
in India, because of the conditions where the ball doesn't swing too much, there's very little chance of the ball going to slip. You'll see in India spinners getting a lot of wickets and they'll be caught at four short legs, heavy point
yes,
and slip. It's
true.
different to field in slip for a spinner. But for fast bowlers, I think India need to work on the slip catching. If they do well in their slip catching, I then think it becomes a 50-50 game.
Agreed. And I think in English conditions, the ball will, the way that it will move, I think those are the, you will have those chances. And New Zealand, I think their fielding is very tight. They also field as a unit. And in India, I don't think that they field as one unit. You have some excellent fielders, maybe like a Jadeja and maybe even Gill. There's a few of them, but they all need to contribute. I think they need to really go, I guess, above and beyond, and and do what they can. And I know we've seen this team do it. I think they just have to make sure that they do it for this final. So moving on to, I guess, the next topic is I just want to talk briefly about the nature of New Zealand, because I think what this final is also coming down to is the how different the two teams are in their attitude, in their mindset. And I think when you look at New Zealand, it's, I would say, or I'm sure many analysts would say the same thing, that it's probably the most underrated and understated team in the world. And it's such a great cricketing nation that has given such a great players and champions, but perhaps they don't get the accolades that they deserve, and that's because they're not asking for it. And you know, when you look at the World Cup 2019, I think there was such enormous pressure, and I think how Kane Williamson came out and in such grace and humility, how he conducted himself during the whole final up until the very end when he gave the speech and so on. I just think very few captains would have done that, I think, and that just goes to you know, him, his, also the New Zealand way, I guess, you know, and I think that's very attractive and appealing, obviously, to fans, including Indian fans. But would you say that these two teams have taken on the personality of their captains?
Certainly, yes, it's a battle of the captains because both of them are different. Kane Williamson, like you mentioned, New Zealand as a team like to be understated, and They know if they are playing against somebody, and if they're, the hype is that, especially India, Australia, even England. England was overhyped. Some players had said on Twitter that England will easily beat New Zealand, but it didn't happen that way. So New Zealand doesn't put pressure on themselves,
Yes.
considering them as the favorites. They just go into the game and their temperament. I have really good former cricketer friends from New Zealand. Simon Dooley is going to be there on
Yes.
commentary. Then former New Zealand players like Craig McMillan is also going to be there on commentary, and Danny Morrison. Danny Morrison is a lively character. So generally, they are quiet. They are, they like to have a little bit of fun. They are not overstated. They are not under too much of pressure. So even the country that New Zealand is, they were the first country to control COVID so brilliantly. So
Yes.
the discipline that you spoke about shows that from their upbringing, how to manage their lives, how one should respect the others. They respect the opponents, and you mentioned again about the World Cup when they lost, they still respect the opposition.
Yes.
A few things went against New Zealand, but they are gentlemen cricketers. They're absolutely gentlemen cricketers, and that's why they don't get the deserving hype and the deserving praise that an Australia would get, and maybe India would get.
Agreed. They are such great ambassadors for the game. Um, so the verdict, it seems, is I would say the currently it's 60-40 in the favor of New Zealand. However, if India wins the toss and bowls first, I think it really becomes 50-50, and then it's anybody's game. Is that how you see it as well, or do you look at it slightly differently?
No, no, no. I look at it the same way as you do. I think because New Zealand just won a series, and you can practice in the nets as much as you want,
Yes.
but playing in a match is totally different. Because practicing in the nets, there's no pressure. Playing in a match, there is pressure, and how you handle yourself. And Ravi Shastri also has a significant factor to play because he's got to tell the boys don't be overawed by the occasion, like Shah Rukh Khan and Chuck, they made the speech. The next 45 minutes, Ravi should be saying the same thing. Next 5 days, and take one session at a time.
Hmm.
Don't look at the 5 day now. Look
Yeah.
at the first session. And what we've done in the first session, what can we do better in the session two? And what can be done even better in session three? So test match cricket is all about winning sessions. The side that wins more sessions will eventually win the test match and be the world test champions.
Wonderful. We can't wait. Um, so we've had a lot of fan questions on social media and off as well, who wanted to ask us specific questions. Now, I've picked about five that I thought were the most relevant ones. And we're running a competition, obviously, at the end of when we go through the five questions, I'll ask you to pick the one that you like the best, and that will be our winner, and he'll get the prize that we have to offer. So let's start. First question is, we've seen in a lot of the ICC tournaments, the matches were played with the Kookaburra ball, but of course, for the final, they're using the Duke's ball. If this final had been played in India, would they have used the SG ball or would they still have used the Duke's ball?
Well, it's a call that the ICC have to take because in New Zealand they play with the Kookaburra balls. In England play with Dukes all the time, and in India you play with the SG, and in Australia you play with Kookaburra. I think Kookaburra is used in South Africa as well. So the Dukes is used only in England and SG is used only in India. The difference is the Kookaburra balls are machine made.
Yes.
So the seam of the ball is well ingrained into the leather of the ball,
Yes.
and there's a wear out of the seam very quickly. On the other hand, the Dukes and the SG are handmade balls with a far more pronounced seam, which means the upright seam will last for the duration of the ball. I mean, 80 overs if you're going to chase the ball, the
Hmm.
seam will be there for you. You use the seam as a fast bowler, you use the seam as a spinner. So the seam is so very important. That's where the Dukes and SG are much closer than Dukes
Yes.
and Kookaburra.
So you're saying for the final, if it was held in India, they would go with the SG because that's what
So they're
most
going with
like.
the SC. I'm assuming because England play with Dukes
Yes,
and the finals happening in England, they go to play with Dukes. If it happened in India, probably they would have gone with SG. If it had happened in New Zealand, probably they'll have to play with
with Kookaburra.
Kookaburra.
Wonderful. The second question, this is on Mayank Agarwal. He has been playing very well. He played well in Australia in 2018, in the West Indies 2019. He was India's highest scorer in New Zealand. At, he scored 243 at Eden Gardens, 215 at Vizag. He has only had one bad series, and yet he's gotten dropped. Do you think that's a bit harsh? And why is he not in this squad
It's a
as
little
the new?
unfortunate. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's got a lot of runs. He's a very good, promising batsman. And you're talking about Mayank Agarwal. We can also talk about KL Rahul. There's so much talent in the side. There's so much talent in the side. But Shubman Gill is rated very highly. If you've got to be a successful player overseas, and remember the Brisbane Test match they won, everybody gave the credit to Rishabh Pant. Yes, he deserved the credit, but the solidity and the foundation was laid by Shubman Gill, who got
Yes.
90 plus. And at the top of the order, when you play the new ball, like we spoke earlier, when you play an innings like that against the new ball, it takes the initiative away, puts pressure on the bowlers. That's what the Brisbane victory was
Hmm.
so happy for all Indians, and it was historic because West Indies beat Australia 28 years before that, and I think India were the other side to beat them. So I think Shubman Gill, not in Brisbane, would have held him in high esteem with the captain and the team management. That's why he gets the preference. But otherwise, the two good friends, KL and Mike, they're just unlucky to miss out.
Wonderful. I hopefully they will get more chances because they are, uh, I mean, Kale is still quite young. Even Mayank is not that old. They still have a lot of cricket left in them. The third question is, what's the most frustrating thing about being a leg spinner?
Well, these days, the frustrating thing, I mean, I think the leg spinners are getting quite a bit of money in IPL and have played bowling 4 overs and getting away with it. So I would like to see leg spinners wanting to play for India in Test match cricket. I
Wonderful.
mean, Yuzvendra Chahal has been around for a while. I think the last leg spinner that played for India was probably Amit Mishra. Because in our times, uh, B.S. Chandrasekhar, after he went out of the team, probably Narasimha Rao came for one test match, India Sri Lanka inaugural test match in Chennai. Then I came into the side as a leg spinner. Then I had one bad test match in Sydney because 1985-86 tour. I didn't play in Adelaide. I had a finger injury. Melbourne, I got 3 wickets. I know it was Steve Waugh, it was Alan Border, and David Hooks. So I picked up 3 wickets. And in Sydney, I went wicketless. And after that, I got dropped. And I played the Reliance Cup. It was a one-day version. But then I didn't play a test match after the Sydney Test in 1986 when I was 21 years of age.
The real competition in this final is between the two captains. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, they lead by example, don't they? And different kinds of captains. Virat Kohli, high spirited, he'll be jumping around. He's a man who likes to show his emotions. He'll like to pump up his boys. Even when a big partnership is going, in normal situations, when there was a big crowd in the Indian stadiums, he would ask the crowd to urge it and support the bowlers. So he's that kind of a captain, very high spirited, high energy, and it's a lot of focus. Once he's worked on his physical fitness and mental fitness, and he's one captain, Virat, from the Indian point of view. I mean, there were a lot of captains earlier who were quite happy with the draw. As long as they didn't lose, they were quite happy. Virat Kohli's mindset was totally different. When he took over captaincy in Adelaide, he got 100 in both innings, and we lost the test match. There was a very, very good chance to have drawn the test match. But Virat Kohli's attitude is, I want to win. I'm not scared of losing, but I want to win. I'm not playing for a draw. The Sydney Test match ended in a draw because they were in a tight situation, and Ashwin and Bihari took body blows and played for over 3 hours. That was a situation where you could not play for a win.
Yeah.
So that you were forced into playing for a draw in Sydney. And Sydney, of course, Virat Kohli wasn't there. It was Ajinkya Rahane captaining the side. I think Virat played only in Adelaide and went back. But Virat, as long as he plays, he will play for a win, and he's going to be very proactive as a captain. And Kane Williamson, on the other hand, he is aggressive. It's not that he does. His show his body language. His body language is pretty calm and quiet. His demeanor is to show that he's in total control, even if there's a partnership building up. And he's a good captain. He's a very, very good captain. He knows which bowlers to use when. And they probably are picking that off spinner, just Patel, because India have a history of losing wickets and crumbling against the off spinners. It goes way back to a New Zealander, John Bracewell getting wickets in Mumbai, and Dilip Venkataka was captain. After that, there was a lot of off spinners who got wickets against India. I remember Moeen Ali getting wickets, 4 wickets in Southampton to win against India. So I think they favored the off spinner over Mitchell Santner, who had to miss out. So I think New Zealand have got their plans probably in the right position, but Indians will have to be prepared for all this and have to execute. This is where once you play Test match cricket, you got the skills. But
Yes.
it's cricket played between the 2 years. It's all
Yes.
in the mind.
That's also the longest road is actually between the years too, to come around and really know what you need to do at the in the moment. And then the final question is, this is for you personally, Ellis. Do you wish that you had concentrated on your batting more?
I know it's a question that a lot of people ask me, but I've got 5 centuries in first class cricket. There was a time when I was playing for Tamil Nadu, I was not getting too many wickets, but I was getting a lot of runs. The year that Tamil Nadu won Ranji Trophy, I was the second highest run getter. But I got pulled out for getting runs because people said, here's a guy who's not concentrating on his bowling, but he wants to concentrate on his batting, so let's drop him. But that's why my last season I had to leave Tamil Nadu and go play for Baroda. But people didn't realize, even if they took the records from my under 15 days, I had got more than useful runs. I was
Mm.
very, very capable with the bat. I got a half century against the West Indies playing in our side game in Hyderabad. And the batting was not too bad, but I got pulled up for that. It's a different time, different day altogether. A
Right.
lot was expected me as a leg spinner, which didn't happen. So it's destiny. I would call it destiny. But I'm so happy to be on your show. I'm so happy to be doing commentary and still connected with the game.
I mean, it's all dharma anyway. It's all dharmic. So, of all of these five questions, which one was your favorite?
I think number four was really good because captain and a leader, there's a difference.
Yes.
And we know who the leader is after day five or day six. And I'm hoping the leader will be Virat Kohli.
Wonderful. This question came from Inder Keshwani. Congratulations, Inder. And his handle on Twitter is Inder_Manila. So I will tweet and tag all of us. And Inder, I hope he watches the show as well as he gets to see the tweet himself so he can hopefully respond to it. Well, we've had an incredible conversation. I think this is the most comprehensive analysis of the WTC final ever. And we shall find out very soon. All the action starts obviously on Friday. It's going to be a fierce competition. I think nobody's going to hold anything back. They're going to leave it all out there on the field. Patience will pay, I think, with these conditions. And playing this final is the ultimate honor for both of these teams. That's why that's why it's called the test of the best. So thank you, Ellis, for your amazing insights and inputs. It was wonderful to speak with you, to learn from you, and hope our audience also learned a lot. And audience, thank you so much. We are so grateful that you tuned in and you watched the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and let us know how you liked it. Please get in touch with both of us. We are both very active on social media, So please tweet, send questions, and so on. Root for India, I mean, support cricket, support India. I think all of our hearts say India can do this. So please back our country. And guys in Bharat, take care of yourself. Social distance if you have to. Please take care of each other, your family. Sanitize, do what you need to do. We're almost there. Whole world cares about you. We all love you over here. A lot of love from America. Stay strong, stay stay together, India together, and Jai Hind and Dhanyavad. Thank you.